Adelaide Strikers, Barbados Tridents, Comilla Victorians, Durban Heat, Gujarat Titans, Guyana Amazon Warriors, Lahore Qalandars, MI Cape Town, MI Emirates, MI New York, Quetta Gladiators, Sunrisers Hyderabad, and Trent Rockets. These are just some of the teams that this spinner has played for over the years. And this is not even an exhaustive list. There are more. We'll tell you who he is after the intro. So Rashid Khan, who we were talking about, is what some would unkindly call a mercenary. These players who wander the globe playing for different T20 leagues and maybe perhaps not so much for their country. But in most cases, it's not in their hands. Hello and welcome to Sportsroom, our weekly show on all things sport. I am Anirudh Madhavan and with me is veteran journalist Ayaz Memon. So now that the latest episode of the T20fication of cricket is underway with Major League Cricket in the United States, our topic today is the future of cricket and whether it could eventually end up with club gaining precedence over country. So Ayaz, let's get right into it. There was recently this report that Mumbai Indians are supposed to be offering a contract to Jofra Archer, a year-long contract, which would mean that he plays for all their different teams in all over the world, and that he would have to seek permission from the Ambanis if he wants to play for England. And you also saw Trent Bolt opting out of a central contract with the New Zealand Cricket Board to focus on T20 leagues. He's playing in the MLC as we speak. So where are we headed with this?
So the proliferation of T20 leagues across the world has created a huge demand for players who will attract crowds, who are worthwhile for the team's performances, and obviously everything else that is associated with a team's or a franchise's good health, well-being on the field, off it. And I think that this is the debate club versus country has been long-standing in football certainly, and it has now encroached on cricket, and I think we'll see more of that. What it means is that promoters, franchise owners or team owners, you'll find that some owners may have multiple teams across leagues, and therefore they will hire the services of players who they can then use and deploy wherever they want. And therefore, if the same players have to be made available for their countries, then obviously there's going to be a bit of a conflict, or somebody has to give permission or take permission from the owners, because ultimately it's about, I paid you so much money for your time and for your skills, and if you're not available, then there is there's friction, there's fissure, there's all kinds of issues can come up. Now this is something that I think will have to be addressed further as we go ahead, because we've seen already, you mentioned about Jofra Archer, there's also Jason Roy. You mentioned Rashid Khan, who's a slightly different, is a slightly different problem, because Afghanistan doesn't play too much cricket. They don't have, for instance, their test cricket is extremely limited. Even white ball cricket is rather limited. In the pecking order of cricketing countries, they don't rate too highly, though I think in white ball cricket they should, because they're a very good team. But be that as it may, there are players who are, Jason Roy was in the running for a place in the England test team, so too Jofra Archer. Trent Bolt has opted out of New Zealand central contract, and so on. These are bound to happen because these players may find it more lucrative to play in T20 leagues, and then willy-nilly they get associated with one owner, one franchise who may have multiple teams. So this is, I don't think we've heard the last of it, but this is certainly going to happen even more as we go ahead.
Yeah, so in our last episode, we were talking about the West Indies players being called mercenaries and doing the same thing. But where does the pride for playing for your nation come into this discussion?
I think this is a very complicated and a complex issue. I mean, it's easy to be dismissive about players who opt for leagues or opt out of Test cricket for whatever reason. I mean, maybe reasons may be very genuine. I mean, if let me just kind of cite an example. If you're looking at Ireland and Afghanistan, they have virtually no Test cricket that they play. So what do those players do? They have to look at avenues where they can earn a livelihood and showcase their skills, and that is coming increasingly through white ball cricket internationals. But in their case, it may be very limited even then. So what do? They'll opt for playing in the leagues. Now, if they opt for playing in the leagues, and then suddenly there are demands for them to play international for their countries, there will be issues of of time and availability, which will create a conflict. So this is something that one has to acknowledge. The ICC has to acknowledge that this is a reality, and then work out a protocol or a system where availability for their country is also part of the mix. If the players still opt out, that's a different matter altogether. But there must be some structure put in place where options are available to all the players, and then let them take a call, or let the respective boards take a call, whichever way they see it.
Yeah, yeah. So I was coming to India at this point. So you don't see Indian players going around playing in foreign leagues because the BCCI doesn't allow them. So my question is, why doesn't the BCCI allow them? And do you see a future where it will?
Again, very complicated and complex, because the simple answer is, why don't they allow? Because they don't want to diminish the value of BCCI's clout in the cricketing universe. It's no secret that a large chunk or major chunk of the audience for cricket follows Indian cricketers wherever they play. Now, if these players are going to be available here, there, for instance, if they're available in any other or many other T20 leagues apart from the Indian Premier League, then obviously it diminishes or erodes the value of the IPL. So the Indian Cricket Board is not willing, quite understandably, to let that happen. What they are now, I think, perhaps open to doing is, in T10 leagues, they are letting these players, most of them former cricketers, most of them who are on the fringe of retirement or have already retired, to go and play there. But the number of cricketers in India has mushroomed a heck of a lot also, and not everybody gets a contract to play for India, or centrally contract to play for India, or not everybody might get an IPL contract. And those who may get an IPL contract may find another contract more lucrative. So how far can you prevent these players from opting out of the system and playing in T20 leagues elsewhere is the big question. You can put a ban, but if it goes into a legal situation, legal issue, then is that a restraint of profession? I'm saying this is complex, because remember when the Packer circus first started, on the Packer series, there was a case against all the players from England, for instance, who had come in, who were playing in the Packer circus. And they went to court and they won the case because they said restraint of trade. The English Cricket Board, or the TCCB then, was preventing them from plying their trade, which is their source of livelihood, elsewhere. Now, obviously, courts and judiciaries and the law is different from country to country. But I'm just giving you what the crux of the matter is, and this is complicated, and we haven't heard the last of it.
So moving to Major League Cricket, as you said, that there's cricket Indians do watch. So we are seeing crowds of like 2,000, 3,000 in those stadiums, but mostly South Asians who settle there. Do you think with this, cricket can finally break into the US market, something that it's been trying for a while? And even the last two T20s in the upcoming India-West Indies series are scheduled in Florida. So is that going to happen? Is that a reality?
I think, to me now, cricket in the US seems inevitable. I mean, it's already started. Earlier, there used to be exhibition matches. There have been a couple of internationals played there. Look, as you mentioned, the Asian component of the population is rather high now. I mean, there's a fairly large number of Indians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, Sri Lankans, who are, collectively, if you look at them, they form quite a good chunk in the US. And they're all devoted to cricket, as we know. And that chunk may be actually bigger in population than quite a few European countries. Then there are people from the Caribbean islands who are there, and they may be not as big in number as the Asians. But when you take a consolidated figure, it creates a whole new market in itself. And it's a lucrative market, because it's like Bollywood films. Everybody who's outside in the Indian diaspora is so attached to Indian cinema, or not just Hindi cinema, but Indian cinema, because that's their connect with the motherland, so to speak. And cricket is another one. So whether it's a Pakistani or an Indian, certainly more Indians who reside in the US are very avid followers of cricket that is happening elsewhere. So too Bangladeshis and Sri Lankans. So this market size, if I may use some big business jargon, is fairly large, and so too is the potential, the financial potential of what can be garnered from this market size. Obviously that it has to be financially viable, and this MLC, Major League Cricket, is the first step is more than just a dipstick survey. It's a full-fledged tournament which is being played there. And if this is successful, if it continues for a few years, then obviously it opens up more avenues. You could have an offshore test match in the US. Obviously, you need infrastructure and stuff. But I'm saying that it's a market that was waiting to be tapped, and that process has become far more aggressively now.
So to the final question, question worth billions right now, is that do you see eventually cricket becoming like football, where we have friendlies and you have the World Cup, but then more focus is on the clubs?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's very difficult to say at this point in time how will it unravel or unfold. I think so. For instance, there's also an attempt or an effort at the ICC level, and some cricket boards, certainly, including India now, BCCI finally veering towards that point of view that we must get cricket into the Olympics. So, whether it's a T20 match or a T10 kind of a format, we don't know. But there is a strong attempt now, and there's a strong urge to get cricket to be part of the Olympic firmament. What shape that takes, how will it impact, leagues? Will it enhance the interest in leagues being played elsewhere? How will all of that impact what is already, the formats that are available? Test, and especially as most people are concerned, the old timers certainly, about what will be its impact on test cricket. It's very difficult to say. I think it's fair to say that the immediate threat is far greater to ODIs, one-day cricket, than it is to test cricket, because there is a certain still aura and commitment and a sizable chunk of people, cricket followers over the world, who still want to see test cricket. But obviously it's still very restricted to that interest, is restricted to countries like Australia, England, India, Pakistan to an extent, South Africa to an extent, maybe Sri Lanka to an extent, New Zealand. But New Zealand, South Africa, these are not countries with high population, not high in terms of volume of people watching cricket in any case. So the threat to test cricket also is there. The ICC is trying to put together, put a structure in place where how to preserve test cricket is going to be a very big priority. So we'll have to wait and see how all this unfolds, Anirudh. But surely there's a lot happening in cricket right now.
Yeah, exactly. So as you said, we just have to wait and see. We can't predict anything right now. All we can do is discuss, which we are doing. So maybe some years down the line, you can see a Prithvi Shaw playing for the Texas Super Kings. Texas Super Kings or MI, whatever MI has. They have Emirates, they have Cape Town, they have
that could happen very swiftly. It's like a wall, dam, the wall of a dam. If it breaks, then you'll find that everything gets flooded. So if you have 2-3 players who opt out, I mean, you had Unmukh Chand who's playing in the US. He became a citizen of the US.
He's
if you have 2 or 3 top-notchers from whichever country, who, certainly from India if it happens, then it could the floodgates might open. So that is also a possibility.
Yeah. Possibilities are endless, as you say. So all we can say is there'll be a lot more cricket, and we're not complaining. That was it for this episode of Sports Room. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Thank you.